I mean, there would be so many more families that would have the children that God planned for them to have if it wasn't for abortion. And it's been very eye opening for me to realize that my parents wouldn't have me
Mm.
if that abortion had successfully dismembered my body as it was meant to.
We recognize the beauty of a pregnant woman, but our society needs to wake up and recognize the beauty of what's inside her as well. Starting at conception, a baby has their own DNA. They are a distinct, separate, worthy, valuable human being made in the image of God. Wouldn't it be amazing if we could watch a video of every aborted baby's life and what would have been? If we could see how chubby their cheeks would have been. If we could see their first few days of life outside the womb. See their little hands, their little feet. If we could kiss their soft skin, hold them, and love them. If we could watch them grow, take on their own personality, their likes, their dislikes, their sense of humor. See all the birthday parties that would have been, all the friends they would have made. If we could see videos of holidays they would have shared with family and friends. If we could see what their first job would have been. If we could see them graduate from high school, from college, see them on their wedding day. Over 60 million babies since 1973 in the United States. If we could have videos to see those lives taken and what would have been. Every person deserves life. And today, we have the great honor of joining us today, a survivor of abortion. We do get to see a video of what would have been. And because the abortion failed, Claire was born. And she is now telling her story. Listen in.
Well, hello and welcome back to Freedom Families. Today we have a huge honor, such a privilege to have our guest, Claire Culwell, on. And today, I know it's only April, but this is the most important story you will hear all year. If you don't have time to listen to the whole thing right now, I really recommend that you wait until you do, because you're not going to want to turn this off. This is an incredibly important story, and it's also inspiring and encouraging. Like I said, it is the most important story you will hear all year. Claire, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
You're welcome. But like I said, it is a pleasure. I am so honored to have you. And for our listeners, Claire is a survivor, but she didn't know that she was a survivor until she was a young adult. Tell us about that, Claire.
Yeah, so I grew up in a home. I was adopted, had wonderful parents who told me I was wanted and chosen and loved, and that God had a purpose for my life. But I could have never imagined truly how miraculous and impactful the purpose that God had for my life would be. I was going to school, studying to be a nurse when I was 21 years old, and got the call from my adoption agency after I reached out to them that my birth mother not only wanted to talk with me, but would love to meet me. And I was thrilled. I was in school and met my birth mother, had this great first meeting, found out that she was 13 years old. So she's just a few years older than me. And I remember the moment I opened the door and laid eyes on my birth mother for the first time, it was like looking in the mirror. She looked so much like me. We acted so much alike. I knew instantly, like, I loved this woman. I was so thankful for her because she had given me my life and my family. But I didn't know the story that would unfold just a couple months later, when we had our second meeting. So I flew to Oklahoma, where she lived, for our second meeting after our first one went so well. And I was so excited to get to know her more. And I brought this gift for her. It was a ring and a necklace with my birthstone on it, because I wanted it to be a reminder to her of how grateful I was to her for what she had done for me. And I wrote on the card that went with this necklace on the airplane on the way there. I didn't even know what to say, because there were so many things I could say. I had 21 years of my life to tell her about, to be grateful for. And I didn't even know how to sum it up. And so I just said, thank you for choosing life for me. Love, Claire. And I got there that day for our second time together, and we had this great day. And in the evening, I decided I want to give her this gift. And so I did. And I watched as her eyes welled up with the most painful tears I have ever seen in my life. I mean, indescribable pain. And I thought, this is supposed to be the happy moment. I mean, this is supposed to be the moment where we hug and everything's great, and she knows that she did this incredible thing for me and that I've turned out okay. And it wasn't. What I saw was pain. And she said, Claire, there's something I need to tell you. Not only was I 13, but I was told by the adults in my life that the best thing for me was an abortion. And so I did. I had an abortion while I was pregnant with you. And it was successful on one baby, on your twin, but you survived. And she just kept saying, I'm so sorry. Your life is a miracle. I'm so sorry. You survived the abortion that ended the life of your twin. I'm so sorry. And she fully expected me, like, to run out of that room that day and never look back. I mean, she thought I took everything from her. I not only didn't want her, I aborted her. I aborted her twin. I left her with, at the time, what I thought were lifelong physical complications from that abortion procedure. There were so many things going through her head. But while she was thinking that I would run out of the room that day, my mind was on her tears. I truly heard her, and I truly saw her, and I truly saw her as someone who nobody stood up for, who nobody told that she could do it, that she was worth it, that she was strong enough to be a mother or to place her baby for adoption, that she didn't have to choose abortion. And because of how I was raised, because my parents told me all my life that I was wanted and chosen and loved, I knew that those things were still true about me, regardless of this new information, regardless of if I was aborted, unwanted, whatever you want to call it. I knew that those things were true about me, not only because my parents told me they were, but because I knew God said that those things were true about me. And so I also knew in that moment that those same things that were true about me were true about her. And so I could forgive her, and I could love her, and I could be a part of her healing journey from the injustice, the pain, the evil that was done, not only towards me, but towards her. And so I chose to forgive her that day. And I asked her, can I share this story? Because I feel like it humanizes the unborn baby. I feel like it will help people empathize with the woman like my birth mother, who was so desperate and didn't know where to turn, and nobody stood up for her. I felt like, yeah, I mean, it opened up this whole new world for me, because I had never, not until I learned that I had survived an abortion, I had never really thought about the issue of abortion. I had not thought about how it affects someone like me, someone like her, someone like my daughter who wouldn't be here if that abortion had successfully taken my life. I mean, there's this domino effect that I didn't realize. And I knew that there was a purpose, and I knew that there was a plan, and I knew that there was a God who wrote this story perfectly for me. For such a time as this. And so it's been an honor, even though it's been hard. It's been, I'm sharing the most vulnerable pieces of my life with the world, the most painful pieces of my birth mother's life with the world. But I'm doing it so that truth can be exposed, and so that people can find hope and healing and forgiveness.
Did it take your birth mother a while to be able to feel comfortable with this story being shared?
Absolutely. I mean, as you can imagine, if you can think, like, put yourself in her shoes, what is your deepest secret? What is your most painful moment that you don't want anybody to know about? It would be the moment that would make you feel the most vulnerable, if it was exposed to society. I mean, I can think of a few things that I'm like, like, man, I want to strive to be like my birth mother, because to have faith like that is incredible. To be vulnerable like that is incredible. And so, yeah, for quite a few years, I was that reminder to her of what had been done to her. And that it was a process of her navigating what it meant for her story to be in the public eye, what it meant to have a relationship with me, the daughter that was aborted but wasn't. But as time has gone on, and she's been able to see the fruit of what sharing our story can do, it can point people to forgiveness who have had abortions. It can point people who are experiencing unplanned pregnancies to know that they're supported, that there's something better for them than abortion. It exposes the humanity of the child, because when you look at my face, you're literally looking at my twin. And there's so many things that God is doing through this story. And so I think that now, instead of our story being this reminder of what happened to her, even though there's still pieces to that and that will never go away, I think that our story is now a reminder of the victory that we've had over the evil that abortion has done to us, and the victory that we have in Christ, who forgives and redeems and restores and enters into our moments of uncertainty and pain, and really meets us in the trenches and wants to do something good with our mess.
For such a time as this, as you said, how important was the foundation that your adoptive parents laid for you in the turnaround time from when you found out that there was an abortion while your mother was pregnant and you were in her womb, and when you found out that you have a twin? That turnaround time between finding those things out and you starting to use your story for good and for more than just yourself, right, was pretty quick. How important was the foundation your parents laid for you and the relationship you had with Christ preemptively to that?
Yeah, it was so quick. I found out that I survived her abortion in May of 2009, and I was on a stage telling our story for the first time in December of that year. And so it was, I just told you 10 months. I don't even think that's 10 months. It was, that's 9 months, I guess. It was so quick. And I think the reason is because you're right. My parents raised me on love and grace and forgiveness. And I watched as my parents were obedient to God, even when it took them out of their comfort zone. So for example, we lived in Costa Rica when I was a kid for a year. We lived in Mexico when I was a kid for a year, because they were missionaries. And you'll be able to journey through that with me if you pick up my book, Survivor. And I watched as they were obedient. And yes, moving your family across the country is, when you have two little kids, is frightening. It's uncomfortable. But I watched as their obedience to God changed the lives of people in these other countries, and in turn changed my sister and I's lives. And so I knew, if God calls me to this, and this would be God calling me to step on a stage, which is my greatest fear. I am 100% an introvert. I would be being called to get out of my comfort zone 100%, but I knew that that is when God would use me best. And because of the foundation that my parents raised me on, love and grace and forgiveness, and I knew about what Jesus had done for me, not only me, but every single one of us, every single woman who's had an abortion like my birth mother, every single man who regrets lost fatherhood because of abortion, every woman who is experiencing an unplanned pregnancy and doesn't know what she's going to do. I knew that the same things that were available to me, the same foundation that I was raised on, that it was available for them too, for every single one of us. And so I think all of those things combined, just watching my parents' obedience and watching, just experiencing them speaking those truths over me as a child, that my circumstances didn't change who I was, because who I was what Christ said about me. And I'm not defined by my circumstances. I'm not held back because I'm an abortion survivor. It's part of me. It describes me in a way, but it doesn't define me. And so getting on the stage was the most frightening moment of my life. And since then, I've had many moments where I've described as the most frightening moments of my life. But in my uncertainty and my fear, God makes a way, and he exposes truth through the face and the name and the story of an abortion survivor. And so I've continued to be obedient just because I've seen what he can do.
Absolutely. That's so important. What was it like, and did you break the news right away you mentioned your sister who was adopted as well, right? What was it like when you told her and when you told your parents about the news you found out?
Well, this is the craziest story. So when we met my birth mother the first time, my parents were there and my sister was there, and we were in Dallas at a mutual friend's house. And we were all so excited to meet her. And we were so excited to thank her, because we knew, like, our life wouldn't be the same if it hadn't been for my birth mother. Our family wouldn't be complete. And we went to dinner that night, and my birth mother actually told my mom in the parking lot as they were walking into this restaurant. She said, I actually had an abortion while I was pregnant with Claire. Do you think I should tell her? And my mom is like, well, maybe you should wait, because she's just meeting you and everything's going great. And so that's why I didn't find out until the second meeting. But what I didn't know when I picked up the phone to call my parents as I was finding out this news, and I was in my birth mother's home staying in this guest room, and we had just had this conversation, and I was trying to unpack, like, what does this mean for me? I mean, I survived an abortion. I was a twin. I didn't know any of that. Right. And I called my parents, and the first thing out of their mouth is, we already knew. But it was incredible, because it was like I went from standing on uneasy ground to then standing on solid ground. As my parents reminded me, Claire, God's fingerprints are all over your life. This is just another way that God is showing us that you were created for something big. Your life was spared for something huge. And we don't know what that looks like yet, but we can trust him, because we've seen how he's protected your life all along the way. You know, I weighed 3 pounds, 2 ounces. I had a dislocated hip and club feet, and I went through body casts that corrected these complications for me. And I went to the Children's Crippled Hospital annually until I was 18 years old as they checked up on how my body was forming. And so there's so many like miraculous moments in my life already. And this just confirmed to us, you know, God's plans are good. God's plans are meant for my good, even if they come out of something that is evil. And so I think that, you know, their response was kind of similar to mine. Like, okay, this is unexpected. Like, this is a little I mean, for not a little, very, very shocking. Not something you ever think you'll find out when you meet your birth mother, but it was okay because we knew that we could trust the God that wrote the story, and we were open to what that meant for our family from here on out. We didn't expect that it would lead me to a stage, you know, 9 months later, but their affirmation in my moment of confusion and trying to navigate my place in this world as an abortion survivor, a world that doesn't want me to exist, that doesn't want to acknowledge my humanity. Their affirmation of who I was the same affirmation that I received all my life as an adopted child. And I knew that things would just be okay.
That's an incredibly important thing. I really want to parse that out about your identity was already in Christ. So it doesn't, and for whoever, whether you find out that you're an abortion survivor or whoever you are, if your identity is in Christ, it doesn't matter what comes at you because you're rooted in something that is unchanging. And I'm sure, and you can tell us more about this, that same fact, the fact that your identity was so solid in Christ and you knew who you were, you knew that God made you, he knows every hair on your head, he calls you by name, he loves you, that was incredibly important in your grounding for when, as you mentioned, even to this day, you have people who either say that you're lying or say that you don't matter or try to minimize your story because it goes against what their ideology is or what they would like to believe.
Absolutely. The narrative right now is that women need abortion, that abortion is good for women, that the unborn child is not a human being designed in the image of God. I mean, there's so many narratives that are just simply false. And I think that is why me as an abortion survivor, my existence, my humanity, my story is ignored at large, is because it exposes the truth. And the truth is the unborn baby is a human being created in the image of God with a purpose, just like me, just like you. And it is our honor, our duty to defend and protect it. But that goes against the narrative that society is telling women today. And, you know, I imagine just like my parents affirmed me in who I was in Christ, I imagine a culture where we affirm women. We tell them that they are supported, that they are loved, that they can do it, that they are strong enough to be a mother or to make an adoption plan for their child because they are going to be supported along the way. We as believers, as community members, as family members, we can make the impossible possible for women if we just say those words, if we just act and tell them that they are supported, that they can do it, that there's something better for them than what is inside of the abortion industry. And, you know, what's interesting is Planned Parenthood and the abortion industry, they're telling women this. They're telling women that they are here for them, that they can solve their problem. And as a whole, believers in churches, we are silent. And so we are sending women to the abortion industry as their safe place because of our apathy and because of our silence. When what we don't realize, what became a reality to me when I found out that I had survived an abortion, that I was the type of person who was affected by abortion. What became a reality to me was that the church is basically saying to women, you're not supported. There is no grace. There is no hope. There is no forgiveness, because if you've had an abortion, if you're in an unplanned pregnancy, that is shame. Because and that's what we're telling women. I know that believers probably don't feel that way as a majority, but through our silence, that is what we're saying, because the abortion industry is over here saying we're here from you, and the church is over here completely silent. Yeah. And so I imagine a culture where we speak up. We as Christians, as believers, as pastors, as family members, even. I imagine a culture where we say no more. We're no longer going to tell women that they need to take the life of their child in order to live their life, in order to be successful or happy or whatever the case may be. Instead, we're going to tell women that they are supported, that they are loved, that they are worthy, that they can do it, that we are going to walk alongside them and meet them in the trenches, because that's what Christ does for us. And that is what he calls us to do. I mean, in the Bible, it says, speak up for the least of these. Yeah. That is exactly what we're talking about here. It is time for us to stand up for truth, to no longer be apathetic, and to speak those words that my parents spoke over me all my life, over women, over families who are devastated because of abortion, like my family has been.
Absolutely. I see the same thing, silence from the church. And whether the church wants this to be the case or not, when the church is silent, then people who are in the church, or even loosely, maybe their parents attend church or their grandparents attend church, but if they're not hearing it from Christians and from church, that we're here for you, and you have this huge support system that you can come to us with anything that happens, then they hear from big abortion, right? They hear from Planned Parenthood, we're here for you, we care for you, which is actually, those are lies, but that's what they hear. At least Planned Parenthood is saying it. They're saying we care about you, even though they're lying. They only care about money. Mm-hmm. So when the church is silent, and the only person who's saying we care about you, we're here for you, is Planned Parenthood, that's where they're gonna go.
That's where they're going to go. And we should, I mean, it baffles me, honestly, because how did we get to this place in society where heart issues, God issues are viewed as these political issues that we want to wipe our hands clean of? I mean, we're basically saying, you don't matter to us. Your pain doesn't matter to us. Your shame is not forgiven. It baffles me that we as believers will not stand for truth in a time where injustice is tearing us apart. Mm-hmm. And if you look at injustice as a whole, right now in society, people are screaming to be heard and to be seen. And what people don't realize is that the injustice in the womb, the dehumanizing and devaluing of our own unborn human children in the womb, is what has led to the devaluing and dehumanizing of other people, as we're seeing right now in society with injustice. And so we have got to stand firm and begin to empower women and come together as believers and as people of conscience and faith to say, you know what? We do see you, we do hear you, and we are going to support you along the way.
Yes, and there are so many pregnancy centers out there, pro-life pregnancy centers and missions and nonprofits and just people who want to be there and who want to help, but they're largely, if churches could partner with Save the Storks and could partner with ministries like Abby Johnson's and like yours, and there are campus pro-life ministries. If the churches could partner with them, I'm so with you that I don't understand how we got to where we are now, and I don't know if part of it was, the churches didn't want to make people feel bad for having an abortion, right? All the
Or
shaming.
their silence is
Yeah.
making them feel bad. I mean, their silence is allowing women to suffer silently, alone, not experiencing the redemption that Christ has for us. So, yeah, you're absolutely right.
Right. And abortion isn't just you walk in, you walk out, and you're good to go. Nothing happened. There's no stress or depression or guilt or shame after you get an abortion. That's just a lie again, because we know that women who are thinking about abortion and go through with abortion compared to those who are thinking about abortion and then end up not going through with it. We know that the latter actually fare better if you're talking about the mental health and well-being of the woman. And those who are like you or Abby Johnson, Save the Storks, all these great organizations, they don't just care about the baby. They are not just pro-birth. There are so many people out there who, with all of their heart and all of their mind and all of their strength, want to help the woman just as much as they want to help that baby. And they value, because so much of it stands on Christ. So many of these missions stand on Christ first, and they see the value in both the baby and the woman, and they want to help both and remind them that they are cared for, that they are loved, that there's a plan for their life, just like God had a plan for your life.
Absolutely. And, another thing that I would encourage people to do is just simply begin the conversation. Have the difficult conversations that are truthful. Have the conversation about life, about abortion, about what happens when you're faced with an unplanned pregnancy. Have that conversation in your community, but not only that, have it in your home. Have it with your children. Because if you are not talking to your children about the most important issues of today, somebody else is. They are learning it at school. They are learning it in the media. They are learning it from the narrative that is being fed all over the country and across the world. They are going to learn about this, and you want it to be from you. And children are learning about these things at a much earlier age right now. You want your children, you want your friends, you want your family members to know that you are someone that they can turn to in their time of need and desperation, rather than them finding themselves in this desperate moment, as my birth mother did, as every other woman across the country that has experienced abortion has, and knowing that the abortion industry is the place that they can go, and not having someone reach out to them and tell them the words that they're desperately needing to hear, in order to feel empowered to feel like they can do it. And so we have got to just get back to the basics of having conversations that matter amongst the people that matter to us, amongst our children and our family members, so that they know that there is hope, even when we mess up, even when we make choices that are not the best, even when there's going to be consequences that are hard, or whatever it may be, that we are the person that they can turn to. We have got to get back to the basics and just simply have the conversation, because this is not a political issue. This is a heart and a Jesus issue. And every single person that is not talking about this, that is not part of the culture that is telling women that they deserve more, every single one of us that is apathetic is contributing to the injustice of abortion, and we have got to do better.
Yes. Yes. And a great way to do that, to get the conversation going, would be to pre-order your book.
Yay, thank you so much. Yeah, my book Survivor, it actually comes out in, I don't know, what's today?
27, 15. So
Gosh, in like 12 days. So
that's my favorite number. 12
I don't
days.
know when this is going to air, so it might be less than that by now. But April 27th, my book comes out. It is, I hope you enjoy it. It is my life journey from before I was born, when my parents were crying out for a child and experiencing infertility, and my birth mother was having an abortion, up until more recently, as I have shared my story across the country and become a wife and a mother and so many other things. It's a truthful message of what abortion does to someone like me, to someone like my birth mother, but it also has a redemptive piece of what God can do when we allow him to work in and through us and take the most painful parts of our life and turn it into something good. And so yeah, pick it up and read it and let me know what you think.
I've pre-ordered mine, so Amazon tells me it'll be on my doorstep the day it comes out.
Yay, so exciting. That's fun how they do that. I had no idea that you get it on the day of, but
Pretty cool.
it's pretty neat. So you'll also, the foreword is by Abby Johnson, who ran an abortion clinic. The afterword is by Josh McDowell, who has written, I don't know, dozens and dozens of books. I'm not totally sure, but there's so many incredible stories. You can order it on Amazon, Barnes and Noble, or wherever you can pick up books.
I wanted to ask you what your relationship is like with your birth mother now. Quite a few years. I'm not sure how many into everything.
It is wonderful. We've seen each other a couple times over the past couple years, and she actually came to see me speak for the first time at the end of 2019, and that was an incredible moment in our story, just so healing for both of us. And she has actually shared her story by video a couple times now, and those can be seen on my website, claireculwell.com. As you can imagine, they're pretty tough to watch as she kind of relives her experience of being a 13-year-old pregnant young girl with no support and being forced to have an abortion and then place me for adoption. But it has brought so much healing and redemption to our relationship as both of us have been able to express what our experience has been. And I think that now as we navigate our relationship, that the pain has subsided a little bit, and the victory story that God is writing on our life is taken front and center, because we defeated abortion. We defeated something that was so evil, because we know that Christ has done something good with it. And because we know that he'll come back one day and make all things right and new. And so, our relationship is really good. And I get to see her in just a couple months, and I'm excited about that.
Do you guys talk about how excited are you to meet your twin, either when you die or when Christ comes back?
Yeah, it's hard to grasp. I mean, I don't know what it's like to be a twin. I know just through the twins that I know in my life, what they experience, that relationship. It's the closest relationship they have. It's the closest relationship I would have had. I know that what I am missing is huge. But it's hard to imagine something that I haven't lived life on this earth. And so I am excited. I know that there will be a reunion. I know that every day of my life, I am spending it fighting for the legacy of my twin, fighting for the good in the story, in a very painful story. And so I'm excited just to celebrate, all that God has done through the legacy of my twin and through the life of me and my birth mother that God spared.
One more thing I just want to make sure our listeners know is that you are not the only person who has ever survived an abortion. It is a very real thing. And what do you want people to know about that, and also about the born alive bills that are being proposed and often voted against by Democrats right now?
Yeah, the Born Alive bill is a bill that actually was reintroduced. The discharge petition was just reintroduced to Congress yesterday for the Born Alive Abortion Survivors Protection Act. And this bill that has been blocked by Democrats, I don't know, over 90 times, I think, in 2019. And then they refused to bring it to the floor for a vote in 2020. And that is still happening, which is why we introduced this discharge petition to force a vote. But the bill says that if a baby survives an abortion, that doctors will give that baby medical care just like they give medical care to any other baby born under. Once a baby is born, this is no longer abortion that we're talking about. If we fail to give medical care, if we fail to revive the life of that child, this is no longer abortion. This is post-abortion, post-birth, and yet it's being clumped into abortion because I think the reason is because if you acknowledge the humanity of the abortion survivor, you acknowledge the humanity of the unborn child that is yet to be born. And so this bill is so important because right now there is nothing holding doctors accountable. They can leave that baby to die on a table. And that is happening. There are documented cases in multiple states, including Texas last year. There were multiple. There are no reporting requirements. And so we don't know how often this happens. We don't know if they revive the baby, if they don't. We don't know those things because there is no law requiring documentation in most cases. And so this bill is incredibly important for babies who do survive abortions like I did, so that they can be given the same chance at life as any other baby. And so I would encourage you especially to write an email, reach out by phone to your congressman or woman to encourage them to sign this discharge petition so that it can bring this bill to the floor for a vote, and then encourage them to vote in favor of the bill that would give medical care. And you're right, there are other abortion survivors like me, not only infants like we just described who have survived in the past couple years, but there is a community of people who are learning that they survived an abortion, whether it's through their parents telling them, through their medical records, through their adoption records, through family members or friends who knew what happened. There is a community of abortion survivors. But as you can imagine, like me, I didn't find out until I was 21 years old. And so even though there are over 300 documented abortion survivors currently that I know of, and many that I know personally because they reach out to me on a monthly basis, but there are many that will probably never know that they survived an abortion. But it's a reality in our country today, and it's something that needs to be talked about and needs to be shared because it exposes the truth, and it helps us know that we're not alone. So
Right. And there are, I think, 30 some couples who want to adopt infants for every infant who is placed for adoption. I think the statistics are something like that. So there are many, many people who are ready to adopt. If someone is pregnant and they do not feel like they are ready, there are people out there who are ready to care for those babies, both in closed adoptions and open adoptions.
Yep. Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, there are more people waiting to adopt than there are children to adopt. And that is the ramification of abortion in society. And so, I mean, there would be so many more families that would have the children that God planned for them to have if it wasn't for abortion. And it's been very eye opening for me to realize that my parents wouldn't have me
Mm.
if that abortion had successfully dismembered my body as it was meant to. And so, yeah, adoption's an incredible thing, and it's sad. Something that we can be praying about. That we will live in a society that values life, that values adoption, that values family, and that no other woman will ever be told that they need to take the life of their child in order to live their life. Instead, they can be empowered through choosing life for their baby, and maybe even an adoption plan so that families can be complete.
Yes, thank you. Thank you so much, Claire, for sharing your story today. It was, just as I said in the opening, it was so inspiring, it was empowering, and it is vitally important. As you mentioned earlier, it's something that we should be having conversations about in our homes, with our kids, with our, other family members at church. We should be talking about this so we can be inspiring and empowering. And a great way to start doing that is to pre-order Claire's book for you and for someone else. Order 2 copies for yourself and give one away.
Yes, thank you so much for having me, EJ. It was so fun to talk with you.
Thanks, Claire.
Hey, Freedom Families. Order Claire's book today. Order multiple copies. Survivor, an abortion survivor's surprising story of choosing forgiveness and finding redemption. Every single person from conception is made in the image of God. Every person deserves the right to life, the right that precedes all other rights. Talk about these issues with your family, your friends, call your Congress people. We need to stand up. We need to fight. Someone needs to stand up for these precious human beings, to fight for those who cannot fight for themselves. They are counting on us. They need me, and they need you. Share Claire's story and stand up for what is right.